Okay, maybe I have to turn the TV on. I thought, Ed, can you hear us? All right, I don't know how to work the new TVs.
Ron, yes, I do.
Oh, we got you.
I
Okay.
had not until just a moment ago.
I don't know nothing about no TVs, so I'm gonna turn the volume up if I can figure out how to do that. What did I just do? Now we're watching Letterman. Hold on. Oh, Letterman. May I see the remote? Thank you.
I'm not even doing the right TV.
It controls both of them, I thought. Oh,
So we need to go, we're at home. Connect devices.
there we go. There we go. Ed, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, yes.
Awesome. Okay. We are cooking with Crisco. So Ed, to give you a little background, the council approved the new TVs and microphones. So the new TVs have been installed, which is why Ron has not been trained.
Oh, cool. I see.
I think he's only on this TV. So, which works because that way we can see you, Ed.
Hey, and I'm sure that it reads that it's Bernice QB, but we share a computer, the only one we can get it on, and it's hers. So it's me, not Bernice.
Cool.
Awesome. Ron, is there a possibility to get a little bit more volume on him?
Possibly. Hold the phone, please. Ed, can you speak again?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
One more time.
Can you hear me okay?
Try the volume remote on the television.
Now I don't know which one goes to which.
You need me to talk louder?
Well, we're gonna try to turn the volume up. I don't know which one.
You're moving.
I don't know what button is volume. It doesn't say volume on it. I don't get this.
See? Hold on. I might have told you the wrong remote. Okay, so I did give you the wrong remote. So we're gonna go back to connected devices. We're at PC.
There we go.
Can you give us another try, Ed?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay now?
It's not coming out of the TV at all, so we'll just deal with it.
Okay. You just need me to talk loudly. Is that a yes?
Oh, so I can send you the presentation that way, so I can follow along.
Well, I don't have access to my emails on this computer.
Oh, okay, well, then I guess we won't do that then. All right, Ed, I'll send you a copy of the presentation when I'm done. It's just a quickie way for us to go through and figure out the specific items from the comprehensive plan that have a monetary aspect that should probably be included in the capital improvements plan. It's just things that I've highlighted to draw attention to people during the workshop, and it's kind of hoping for a little bit more attendance, but I want to make sure that everybody has the ability to, present and bring up important items for them.
Okay.
Right, so first thing is, and since there's only the 5 of us that are working on this, I actually went through, here, I'll try. All right, so I don't think I can necessarily see that all that easily. But what was interesting to me was when I was going through the comprehensive plan today during my lunch break. I was looking at the population of the town of Mineral. And I originally ran some numbers based off of a population of 500, but I went back to the comprehensive plan and used the 2022 census numbers. We have a Based on those numbers, we have 614 total residents in the town of Mineral. That does include everyone up to and under the age of 5 years. But I think it's important for people to know that who exactly it is that we are serving. It's not the people that are of a certain age or of a certain income or demographic. We are serving every single person. So I have listed on this slide right here, the percentage of people in the town of Mineral that earn below $35,000 a year is 16.8%. That equates to about 103 people in the town. Between 35 to 99,000, which would be the middle class range based on the current federal standards, it is 52.8%, approximately 325 people. And above that, we're on 100,000 to 149,000, it's 22.5%, approximately 138 people. And with income levels of 150,000 and above, it's 7.8, with approximately 48 people in the town. And I'm just reminding everybody and all of those who are following along at home and watching this on their own time, we are not serving any single one of these demographics. We are serving every one of these demographics with the decisions that we make. And I think it's important to remember that as we're going through this, we take all of that into account.
You can break down by age.
I do. So we actually have, is there a specific age range?
Because I can't see it.
I'm happy to read it to you.
Sure.
So under the age of 5, it's about 12%, 74 people. 5 to 9, 8.8, 54 people. 10 to 14 and 15 to 19, I'm just gonna combine those. That gets us to about 9.5. That's approximately 50 people. I'm sorry, 60 people. And then from 20 to 24, we're at 3%. 25 to 34 years, that's our largest demographic. That's 159 people, 25.9% of our population. And from there, it goes down from 8%, 6%, 5%. It does go up a little bit again at 60 to 64 years at 8.8%. And then it drops on down as the ages increase.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Cool. Let's move on to the next slide. So what I did for this presentation was I literally took the comprehensive plan that the TJPDC put together for us last year. And I highlighted all of the items listed in that historic resources, or I'm sorry, in that comprehensive plan, as you can see on this slide here for historic resources. Maybe. I highlighted any of the items that have some sort of a monetary aspect, or at least one that I saw was something that we should make sure that we bring up with the town council, saying that this is probably something that needs to be talked about when it comes to budgetary time or budgetary decisions. And to be clear, this is for the 2026 to 2027 fiscal year, because with a month left until our new fiscal year, that is not going to be enough time for the planning commission to put together a comprehensive capital improvements plan. So what I suggest is we move forward with the 26 to 27, and we make sure that we highlight the things that are important and known concerns and known things that we're working on, like the water system for the upcoming fiscal year. That way we can provide a representation to the council as to immediate need, and this is our dream moving forward. And I mean, other than that, I think the purpose of this evening is to identify these items, take a look at the budget information, which Mr. Chapman has been said that he was willing to provide the information that was discussed last night at the meeting from his notes. So that way we have an idea of what's being discussed during the budget, and we can make sure that we align ourselves with what council is thinking for their budget, as well as making sure that we represent the needs of the citizens based on what they put into the comprehensive plan. I guess it was 2 years ago is when that process started.
When I look at this, I think, I hope you don't mind me.
Oh, no, please.
I think of, so for example, under historic resources, there are things that are pipe dreams, but there's too many other players involved for us to say, we're going to do this without a lot of discussion. Ownership of the future depot, I don't know that that's going to be an easy one to do. Whereas rehabilitating the jail to make it a spot does seem doable. So priority is, I think we almost need to prioritize, not numerically, but in light of what is possible, easily within reach.
Yeah, oh, I completely agree.
Like, I didn't know we had a town cemetery. And I don't know where it is.
That's the one that's located back off of First Street, I think it is. Yeah, because that was the one that Ed and Bernice actually took us to and showed us that time.
Ed could tell you exactly where it is. We may have lost Ed, but Ed could tell you exactly where it is. But if you go behind, I'm gonna mess this up because I'm horrible with finding stuff. The one that says take a right at the rock, and if the rock's not there, you're screwed. But it's in the woods back behind,
Oh, it's Second Street.
back behind Second Street. And it's got some Civil War age memorials are back there. And I don't think anybody in the town knew that it was there.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some room for us to preserve that.
That's where I think prioritizing in terms of within reach and convincing the state. Talking about the Home Depot, about the depot.
So I can go back and address where the old jail was or is. That is right beside where the recycling center for the town is. When you come in from the Louisa direction, immediately on the left before you get to the traffic light, you have the recycling center and the old maintenance shop of the town. The old jail was a part of that maintenance shop. It's still there. It's just encased by some building that housed equipment in the past, not any longer.
So
And then they were talking about the cemetery. Of course, that's off the end of Second Street.
So there's, if you're gonna put a budget towards something, those two items. I think going back to the train depot, there may be a need to move it away from the track. And that would be tremendous expense.
oh yeah, most definitely. Well, and I've heard information about the purchase of the train system.
Junior Rail Express, or the state bought it.
Right. But they're actually setting up the shop in town of Louisa.
Yes. So they actually cleaned out some businesses so they can use parking. So what I heard is they want to get the excursions from Louisa up into the mountains.
That's interesting.
So
I would also, if I can speak up.
Sure.
Okay. I would also like to mention and make a request that the town does now own and have responsibility for what is the farmers market, or was before privately owned, but it was donated to the town. And the town has obligations in that transfer of gift to the town to do certain things. So I would say it would be in the best interest of the town to have some monies to be able to spend at the now called Whitlock Family Park, as well as on that new park development portion that the town has purchased where the old school used to sit. So I would hope that it would not be determined to not fund either of those projects, that there should be some monies to be able to make some progress and show some interest in the improvements to be made at them.
Oh, most definitely. I would agree. And
Once we get down to that.
right, and there is a specific section in here for parks and recreation, and that's definitely at the top of my list too.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Of course.
Then I don't feel like I'm too.
No, we're having a conversation. There's only
Yeah.
3 of us.
Good objective 2,
Mhm.
in promote and enhance historic district center area. The one thing that appears to be doable is 2.2,
To replace existing streetlights.
streetlights.
Mhm.
That's, everything else is kind of.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. So I do want to go back, Laura, 1.1, just to try and go through it. And that's specifically about the train depot.
Yeah,
So I think that is most definitely a later year recommendation, like long-term kind of a thing. But it definitely is going to need some, at least research within the next couple of years.
yes. And then 1.2 would follow that, if it becomes possible.
Could I add that I would suggest money may not need to be spent regarding the train station, and obviously wouldn't since the town doesn't own it, but it might be well to make direct contacts with the state to express the interest of the town in it, to find out whether they would entertain gifting it to the town or some other arrangement. But it's been years since the town contacted anyone about it, and the previous owners were not interested in disposing of that property. But there's lots of people that say, that I've heard anyway, that the state may take a totally different approach on it.
That's a really good point, Ed. And I made sure that I included that in my notes here for us too, that we need to contact the state and determine who the owner is. Because you're right, if we can get that as a potential gift or grant from the state, especially if it's something they're not planning on using, then that saves the town quite a bit of money. And it's a nice feather in our caps as well.
Agreed.
And then train station is a welcome center, so yeah, that follows the same. Restore the old town cemetery, including preservation and marking of grave sites.
That could be that could be probably the easiest one to do without spending a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Make a big party of it. Talk to some Boy Scouts.
That was my thought too, Jim, that Boy Scouts or other groups might take interest in being able to do projects to help keep it cleaned and work on improving the old cemetery.
I like that.
If I may, there's also a ton of historic grants that through the help of the staff, we can apply for that are specific to historic grave sites and cemeteries.
Okay.
So we can look into that too. I think you're right. I think there's not a lot of money needs to be spent, but I think there's a lot of money available to help us get there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like both of all 3 of you have said already, yeah, getting local groups like the Boy Scouts and other groups. I mean, maybe even Laser or I'm thinking like the
Underground radar.
Underground Radar.
Yeah. Or I thought you were going away to determine.
Oh.
There's a way to use radar to determine burial sites. My seeing eye friend just passed me a note, which I will look at with a good eye, because we will need to work on getting expert restoration of monuments.
I like expert restoration.
Beyond cleaning it up.
Don't go in with a power washer.
Yeah, no, because that'll ruin
This
it.
is name right off the thing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, make sure that we preserve, because that's the point, is to preserve it
Yeah,
as best we
we
can.
could get in there and weed,
Right.
brush hog and.
No power. Part of more power, but backhoes or Power washers. Yeah. Work with us. All right, so the next one is establish a walking trail for public access to the Civil War veteran burial site at the Old Town Cemetery. That's technically part of 1.3.
It follows it.
And I think that would be a secondary one. So I think that's more of a long term that we can put as a dream, hopefully, but
Yeah.
within a couple of years. Now, what do you guys think about, because I don't know that area for walking trails, and I didn't know if there was a walking trail
To it,
or around that area.
I think we'd have to just look at a map and get some ground truth. Go out to see what we have to crawl through. Also, it has to do with who owns property surrounding it.
Right.
Well, I can tell you that if you go to the end of Second Street, it dead ends and you have to park there and walk across somebody's edge of their yard to walk back to where the cemetery is. So it's not a trail there. It's not even marked, any sign to where you want to go to find the cemetery. But once you get back to the cemetery, it appears to me that the corner of the cemetery fronts on what would have been the end of a town street at St. Francis, I believe, that goes up and goes right by it. So though that's not developed and it's not open to look at or to travel, I believe St. Francis comes right up through there to it as far as town property.
I'm looking at the map. St. Francis comes up.
It comes up to Third Street and takes a turn and then comes Third Street back out to Mineral Avenue.
Right.
But if you just continued straight, if you were coming up St. Francis, that will go straight through and to that cemetery.
Okay. And it's listed as Virginia Avenue back there.
Virginia Avenue also goes probably, that goes into Second Street.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it does look like the map, because it's got Virginia Avenue, which is like areas, just on the map here.
Virginia Avenue. So I would say that the first thing we do for that is some of us need to go take a walk and take our maps and figure out the truth of what we're walking on.
I like that idea. Including that as notes.
Okay. Field trip.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did not clarify this before. I don't want to spend all evening in this meeting, so my maximum limit is going to be 8:30. But I'm hoping we can go way before that. Yes.
Yeah, just if she leaves, I'm walking home.
Well, if you leave the meeting, so I guess it's all in your hands.
So, okay, so we've covered the historic resources.
Almost. So we did talk about the jail. I think that one's gonna have to be a long-term one as well. Like Ed said, we have to figure out about the status of the building and everything.
Another field trip.
Have any of you been in the building that houses the jail? Oh, it's cool. We'll have to set up a time. We'll have to reach out to Hank because he's got the keys. He can let us in. We'll set up a time. It's pretty cool.
It might be some of those things where you make it a public meeting.
FYI, it only has one window and it's small and it's up way high.
Mhm.
It's got bars in it.
But if we make that into a public meeting, that might build some interest in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I like that.
So
I do think it would be good to have trails around town that people could just walk streets and find and see certain things, of interest and note to the public, to tourists, to travelers, or anyone else.
I like that. Historic walking tour trails.
You remember when I talked to you that we should have QR codes on posts
Mm-hmm.
so that you could read the QR code and then they would picture what it looked like, the buildings that were here, and it would make an interesting walking tour.
Yeah. And that's something that the State Historic Foundation will help us with. And I'm sure if we reach out to Louisa County's Historic Society, they'll help us with it as well. And then, of course, the Mineral Historic Foundation has a bunch of information and pictures, and a lot of it is actually coming in here this coming week to be displayed in Town Hall. But that could be a multi-town and county experience that we glom off of their financial resources.
So I'm gonna keep moving right along with the, to get through the historic resources. So objective 2 is to promote and enhance the historic downtown center area. It's also kind of what we've been discussing with the walking trails and everything too. 2.1 is work with the Mineral Historic Foundation to create a historic overlay district and define its borders. That's technically already in process with the historic overlay discussions that have been happening at the meetings. So since we're sitting here right now, across the table from the president of the Mineral Historic Foundation, Mr. President, is the Historic Foundation interested or amenable to having discussions about assisting with the historic overlay?
So, I mean, absolutely. I would have to check back with the rest of the board. It's not a unilateral decision, but I think it's kind of an duh.
So we'll put that down as that's kind of in process since we're already having those discussions. And then what we'll do is I'll leave that as, if you don't mind, a follow-up for you to check back with your board and get back to us before the next session to let us know what the foundation would like to do and how active they would like to be.
Sure,
I
absolutely.
think the planning commission has some options to present to the board about developing the overlay district.
I think that we should invite, just my opinion, I think that we should invite the Historic Foundation to the either planning commission or this committee to kind of work together to brainstorm the plan that then gets pushed up the totem pole. I would not represent the Historic Foundation in this respect. We would get someone else from the foundation to do that because I can't wear 3 hats at the same time. I mean, I could, but it would look silly. So we want to make sure there's another voice, an impartial voice.
And I don't want to get too into the details of this because there are already other conversations happening about historic overlay, so I don't want to get off of that. The next one I am excited about. Replace existing streetlights with historic style streetlights that provide a flag and banner display and effectively illuminate roads and sidewalks. I think this is one that we should really put at the forefront of our list. And this is even one that I'd recommend probably for this upcoming year, if anyone else would agree.
I think that, yeah, I think there's a matter of scale that you should consider. That street is huge because it was meant to be this monstrous main boulevard. And the kind of lights that line Louisa's Main Street are out of scale to the size of this street. And that's need to be considered.
That's a good point.
My 2 cents would be that it would be a great improvement to address the electrical and lighting availability along Mineral Avenue and Louisa Avenue, and I guess the parts in between, which is the part we've talked about is having the overlay in. And with the ultimate aim is to get all of that underground. That's probably very, very expensive, but to get it underground should be the ultimate desire. Who wants all of the wires stretched out and going across the street and being unsightly? There have been accidents with some of the lines across the street. One right down there near the post office and right below that, maybe a year or 2 ago.
Oh, where the semi took down the, yeah, I remember that day.
Sure did. And we also need to get the utility companies to get rid of those old poles that are still gracing the streets. And that means the cable and other auxiliary things that were on Dominion's poles.
That's a really great point. And I wonder if that's something we can get someone to do for us if we are able to contract that out at that point. Maybe say, hey, we've got these old poles, and get the permissions from Dominion and any of the other owners of those utility structures, and either get permission or have them remove them, so that way when we get the streetlights in, it's a much easier process.
Yeah, my recollection was that Dominion came and asked the town for authorization to use the poles and to remove and put new ones there. And the hangup was not Dominion. It was these others, whether it's cable or other things that are attached to those poles. And I think somebody's got to put a fire, so to speak, under those parties for them to get their stuff off of it, or it'll just be there until who knows when. That's what the holdup is those auxiliary things that use the old poles. They still apparently are using it. And, I would say that Dominion needs to be requested to make those people get on the ball and remove it.
Agreed. And I think your metaphor of light a fire was quite appropriate, seeing as I remember seeing that semi actually catching on fire during that day. So I think that's definitely an improvement that's going to benefit everybody in the town to not have safety issues and
Yep.
trucks, pulling down our poles.
And there's push to harden the power system. But it would, it's something to explore. But I think it would be just expensive.
Well, I think it's fortuitous that this came up in tonight's meeting. And I just want to point out, I have not seen anything that Brian is presenting tonight. But I went through and watched old council meetings to find out what kind of slipped through the cracks in the changes of regime as it is. And this was one of the things I put on my list. So the town council will be addressing the unnecessary poles that currently line Mineral Avenue.
I do think that as our group, as the planning commission, it would be a good idea to address both the historic streetlights as well as the poles, probably in the same item, because I think Ed is right in this, is that we don't really want to put in the pretty if we've still got the unnecessary and quite frankly ugly, decorating our streets.
Some of these, like this one, the 2.2 here, is really fits in with some of the objectives under transportation, which would affect pedestrian crosswalks, fixing sidewalks. So there's a potential big bundle of things that shouldn't be addressed piecemeal, but part of a big package of addressing that, and that.
Agreed, yeah. Can you repeat those codes?
Yes, transportation 1.1, 1.2, that would be the biggest part of it, I think. Pedestrian crosswalks and filling the gaps with the sidewalks. I know that there's the bump out for the pedestrian crosswalk, farmers market. The purpose of the bump out is to put the pedestrians proud of or out further than the cars that are parked. Because that way you don't have to dart between vehicles.
Right. I like that. So, and I think there is one in here too. I'll make a note of that for sidewalk changes.
Yeah, the town has talked often about the need for many different locations of sidewalks across the street or crosswalks. near the post office, certainly there at the traffic light, and then third in front of the volunteer fire department. But it has been unsuccessful at getting the support, I guess, from VDOT for those crosswalks. So I think that is in the comprehensive plan that it would like to see 2 or 3 in those particular locations for the safety of the pedestrian traffic around the town. So good to stay on top of that and try to get VDOT to do something. Can I also go back to that old poles thing? I had failed to mention that the county was putting in Wi-Fi all over the county, and they needed to go through the town in order to reach other areas near the town in coming from Louisa or wherever they were taking them from. And they got that from the town. But then it was talk about that the town of Louisa and Mineral may not be eligible to get fast broadband service because we already have cable in town. That was brought to chairman of the Board of Supervisors' attention. And from what I understood, we were still assured that we would get it in the town, but it would be after everything else was done. So the town might want to stay in touch with the county on that from a standpoint as they wrap up, not to forget that the town of Mineral, and I think likewise the town of Louisa, want and are expecting to get the same high-speed internet availability to them, because what apparently some people don't understand is, though that internet cable is currently available in town, it's not available to everybody in town. It's selectively available, like on the main streets or the Mineral and Louisa Avenue, but not off of that into many other portions of the town. So, the talk in the county was that everybody in Louisa County would have this broadband, and Mineral needs it. And I would think that Louisa would feel the same, town of Louisa would feel the same way. Maybe Ron could address that. That's my recollection.
That's a really good point, Ed. And thank you for clarifying that, because I remember discussing that at some point in the past few years, where I think it's Mineral Avenue and maybe a street or two back have access to the cable internet or the high-speed internet through like Xfinity. But everyone else that's beyond that in the back streets aren't getting the same kind of access. So
Correct.
Everybody
and even that we have at Infinity, it's not as high speed, it's not as good a service as what broadband is.
Right, exactly.
So I would think that the townspeople and citizens and businesses throughout the town would like that to be a high priority, to have the county provide us as citizens of the county and the town the same opportunity as everyone else and businesses in the county of Louisa.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think that should be added to the top of the list for this year as well, because it is something that is time sensitive. Since they're going through that.
Yeah, all that needs to be bundled with keeping in touch with the county and not letting them in the project before these loose ends are taken care
of. Is anyone familiar with the timeline for the project when it's projected to?
Yes. So the county is at 85% completion. They intend to be completed in the county by January 1.
2026?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and that would be countywide completed. The project is scheduled to be completed. It'll be about 8 months earlier than originally projected. The town council just authorized by resolution a communication agreement between the town and the county for exactly this kind of thing, so that our staff can work with the county staff, county level staff, and have that flow of information going in both directions. So I'm taking notes as you guys are talking, and I can have answers for your next committee meeting.
Awesome. Oh, and just to confirm this too, anything that we're adding to the, needs to be seen by council for this year, for the upcoming year. I want to put together a draft and I'll send it to the planning commission just as an FYI. And then from there, I'm just turning in the information. We can decide what we're going to do with it after that.
Thank you.
No problem. Let's see. Okay, so the next two are 2.3 and 2.4 were more of a, let's look at it for a second and probably move on. Foster and promote infill of commercial businesses that support residents and local schools, cater to other businesses, shoppers, and visitors, and comply with the town zoning ordinance. It's not necessarily something that we do. I think that's more of a regular process the town should actually be going through. But I do think that we should highlight that as something that the town should include in their budgets. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's not something you can fix by going out and spending money to buy something. It's part of a process that probably works through those town committees dealing with business. Certainly, any changes in zoning would come to the planning commission to consider, but it's not an easy one. It's not no easy for that one.
Thoughts on that one, Ed?
I think I kind of slipped my focus. Everybody what's your question about? What was
No problem. So it's the foster and promote infill of commercial businesses that support residents and local schools, other businesses, shoppers, and visitors.
Yes. Certainly key there from what I heard was focus on commercial infill. I mean, we're missing businesses. We're missing additional restaurants and additional places for people to come to dine, to socialize, to be entertained, to enjoy themselves. No disservice meant to any of the present businesses in town. But if we want to attract more people, we need more things for people to come to Mineral 4.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. I think we're probably all on the same page with that then. And then 2.4 is encourage property owners to engage in renovations and maintenance to preserve the town's historic buildings and resources. I think that kind of falls in line with the historic overlay discussions as well as just general maintenance of buildings and structures within the town. I think that should be a line item as part of the capital improvements plan, but it should probably be inclusive of other items. And I think we'll probably go through those too. Any thoughts on that?
It's hard. It's hard to quantify.
Right.
That one.
So I'll leave that TBD. And we can work on that later.
I think at some point down the road that the town may want to support and encourage its historical foundation or its other entities, if we get the overlay district created, to have some information and recognition of the different things that have some historic connections. That's what you normally find in any historic district. So if that's part of what that item is talking about, I think that would be a worthwhile thing to make as an aspiration, but it's not something that's going to happen or be needed, in the immediate time frame. I don't think.
Yeah, sounds like we're all in consensus on that. This is working again. Okay. So I'm seeing as it's already 7:22, I'm going to, I think, speed it along. I'm going to keep my comments short and I'll just get feedback from you guys and literally give 2 cents for my opinion. Next section is transportation. 1.1 is to explore opportunities to install pedestrian crosswalks on Mineral Avenue, Louisa Avenue, and East First Street.
Yep,
My
yep,
thought
yep.
is that it is necessary and should be included.
That's what we already were talking about.
Yes, awesome. 1.2 is seek funding to construct new sidewalks. It's not necessarily something we can add to the improvement plan, except as a recommendation to look for grants. But I think it's kind of part of the first one.
We could recommend that it's an actual use for capital improvement funds. So that's one that you could say, we recommend you fund this amount of sidewalk this year. Because it's a dollar thing there.
I like that. Any thoughts on that one, Ed?
I think we have lots of sidewalks in town that are in a bad state of disrepair. And to be able to survey them, I don't mean take a survey, but I mean to somebody to inspect them and determine where improvements could be made, it would be very worthwhile to do. And to extend many of those that are in the town limits along the streets. Good idea to look for grant money to do that. That's pretty much, how I feel about it. We may need to go down, I would think, Mineral Avenue towards the south where the edge of town is, because the big road narrows to a smaller road and there is no sidewalk there. So that would be a priority, I would think, to consider that for an extension. Because you also got development that's done happened there recently. So.
And that does lead into the next ones as well. 1.3 and 1.4 both talk about adding bike lanes and improving the sidewalk network. So I think that those 3 points kind of fall under the same category that we can specify.
Bike lane thing, we park on the side of the road, which if you added bike lanes, that would be towards the center. So you put bikes are gonna be a hard one. Anyway, we talked about this some years ago. We had talked about providing bike access on both sides of the main drag and providing a safe place to cross. We kind of felt that the town was divided by the road. You couldn't ride a bike safely maybe across the main drag here. And that, but to put a bike lane, except for those people who were doing this, the 76 route, who are used to dealing with traffic. If you got a kid on a bike, routing them down Main Street may not be the best idea. Not that the way traffic is, and the fact that we got cars parked, you're putting them in a grind situation. I think some discussion there needs to happen. Because I'd like to make it easier for kids to ride bikes. I've ridden my bike down Main Drag, and I wanted to carry a paint gun for anybody who got too close, because I've been hit twice in my years of bike riding. And get a little Claymore mine that just turns their car. But I think it needs a broader community discussion about bicycles.
It's a good idea.
I think the bicycle part particularly is something where if we were using the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, However, I know that their cost that they came forward with was quite high. Their professionalism and knowledge would be just the thing that they regularly do. I think that they're assessing and recommending how to best approach improving the bicycle safety for young and old on the main parts as well as the back streets of Mineral would be something that none of us particularly would have. I know I wouldn't have anyway. So that might want to be kept in mind whether we use them for the big picture or just call upon them for smaller segments, things like that. I think somebody with real knowledge and expertise might be well to provide some input.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I want to know too, because this was included in the Thomas Jefferson Planning District document. I'm not sure how many people recommended bikes or how big that was a topic. So that'd be interesting to look back and see what those details were and get that community engagement.
I think I do believe there's a lot of interest in the walking as well as biking in any town. I would think that ours would probably not be any different than any other, but it's got to be safe.
If I can, so if I'm remembering correctly, and Ed, correct me if I'm way off topic here. When we had the TJPDC came in and did a couple of public meetings, it was like 80% of the people who commented that they would like to see more public use, bicycle lanes, walking lanes, public access, crosswalks. It was something like 80% of the people. So it was a massive number.
Right.
Don't quote me on the exact percentage, but it was a massive number of people. I can dig up and get you guys the exact number. It's not something I have in my back pocket though.
Yeah. But that's a good point. The public was asked about that, and there was surveys done from those attended.
Mhm.
So there should be, I mean, I'm sure that they would readily provide that same information back for us because that was part of what we paid for in the comprehensive plan preparation.
What is that you have there?
This is the comprehensive plan packet.
Oh, wow. Nice. See, you can find it for us. Thank you.
Don't hold up for me to look through this, but
So the next item is the CIP funding to construct a shared use path along Route 208 Davis Highway, connecting the town of Mineral and Louisa via the Betty Queen Center and the public schools.
Yeah, I can see that as you see those paved paths that are off the road and they're wide enough for walking. So you make a walking, biking path from Mineral to Louisa into Union High School. I think it's a nice idea. I think it's beyond the scope of what that's more I think a county talking with everybody else. So we can approach them.
That's a really good point too, yeah, because we can't really pave past town limits if we wanted to put
Yeah.
a walking path.
But we could build a consensus here and maybe then with the town of Louisa and the Parks and Recs, the Parks Department about some kind of setup, but you also have to consider land ownership runs right up to the road.
That's true.
That is correct, Mr. Snyder, that road between the town of Mineral and Louisa was purchased when it was undeveloped back in the 20s or 30s as a shortcut straight from Mineral to Louisa without having to cross back and forth across the railroad track 3 or 4 times like it used to be. And the road used to start on the other side on Louisa Avenue as it came through town and then went back and forth. So when they purchased that, they've only got ditch to ditch. And of course, I live in that area of town. where you're talking about. And I've heard some talk about wanting to run sidewalks on both sides of the street from here to the Betty Queen Center. And I personally do not see the need for sidewalks on both sides of the street from here to there, from the light to Louisa, or even to the high school. On one side, yes, maybe so for safety's sake, but you are going to have to purchase land. And that was the problem in the past, being able to purchase the land. And a lot of it is, particularly the west side, is in the county, not in the town, from right about where Mineral Restaurant is, straight on west towards the school and towards so the majority of what you'd be talking about would be in the county, not the town. But I would not favor, and I've expressed that to the town manager at one point in time, that it be on both sides. Because to be perfectly honest, we own both sides. As far as Bernice and I own both sides to the ditch. And I would not like to see it come through on my side where our house is. And it's a historic home dating to 1899, and see all of our box bushes wiped out for sake of the sidewalk to one of the oldest homes in town. On the other side, we own that too, because the road split our property at that time when they built it. So maybe on that side, but it would have to be purchased, just like everyone else's would have to be purchased. So it probably would not be inexpensive. You'd certainly want to be getting a grant, I would think. I have mentioned that if the town wanted to pursue it being on both sides, then because of the old school property and the now Whitlock Park, that an easier way to build a sidewalk on the Louisa Avenue side would be to extend the Louisa Avenue sidewalk along Whitlock Avenue to the corner of what's called anyway, the street that butts up on the town and the church property. It's owned by the town. It's tram line. Put a sidewalk there, cross the railroad track, come out at the restaurant, and then head west to the town. There would be reason to get you from 2 parks or 3 parks right there onto 208, and then head to those other properties. So I offer that as a thought. If the town were pursuing this side of Mineral Avenue at the least possible cost, I would think, and also to have lesser impact in doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But this is not one we throw money at right now.
Yeah, I think it's more of an aspirational one.
Yeah.
But I think the list.
If I can circle back to the earlier conversation, which was the in-town sidewalks, bicycle trails and whatnot. So the town, in Appendix C, public engagement session of its current comprehensive plan, we have 9 goals. In those goals, it is listed 3 different ways to improve, like walking trails, pedestrian traffic, sidewalks. So we actually list out essentially the same point, 3 different ways in our goals. And then if you look through, each one is broken down with its objectives and what the public's weight, how they would scale it in importance. And in every one of them, it's increasing the compact small town environment, sidewalks, walking trails, bicycle trails. So it is riddled in our comprehensive plan. So I think that's something that we can push for as this committee is starting to put together capital improvements plan because it coincides 100% with our comprehensive plan.
Fantastic. And that actually works out well that there was such concern. We can say that, hey, we'll work on internal town bike trails and walking trails and sidewalks and sidewalk repair first.
Right.
And start looking about expanding out the county.
Right.
All right, so the next ones are on objective 2 is to enhance the traffic flow and safety. I think I'm gonna just read through these together because I think they're all pretty much illustrate the same point. Explore traffic calming measures at the intersection of First Street and Mineral Avenue. Reduce the frequency of access points along public roads. And reduce the number and severity of bottlenecks by assessing opportunities such as optimized traffic signals, locations for roundabouts, turn lane restrictions, and improved public transportation. To me, all 3 of those points, they fall right under improvements to the road system and along with the sidewalks. If we're going to be working on the sidewalks and the roads at the same time, we might as well work on them together.
When I read 2.3, I thought, yeah, the person who wrote this lives in Charlottesville.
Without comment.
No, optimized traffic signals, we have 1 traffic signal. You can't optimize it with anything. Locations for roundabouts, turn lane restrictions, and then improve public transportation. All of that is just way out there. I don't know that we could budget for any of that. The bottleneck is the bottleneck, and when the train comes through, it's got a stopper jammed in it so tight. Traffic calming measures, those would be the bump outs that they have in Louisa, in the parking. I think that's what you would consider. But again, you've got this wide open big road. And the access, a lot of this doesn't make sense for mineral, it seems. I don't know where you would spend money on it, except number 2.4, regular medians. And looking at how well that crosswalk works over on Louisa Avenue. That's what we should have here. And we've always talked about where we could have them, but I don't think at any time we ever said anything to VDOT. And if we did, enough people have retired now that we could have a different conversation.
That's a good point. And I think too, the traffic calming measures would also include things like speed limits, turn lanes, things like that.
Well, Becky asked me, why is the turn lane missing down here at the corner? And the reason is trucks can't turn from there.
Yeah, they would go right into the hair salon.
Right. I mean, that's technically a traffic calming measure.
So, yeah, I don't see a lot here except maybe those things we do to improve pedestrian access and maybe looking at speed limits. When traffic calming measures, when we got the radar sign up.
When the General Assembly just passed new guidelines on towns being able to adjust the speed limit, small municipalities being able to adjust the speed limit within their borders. I'd have to dig up what the new laws are before they change them in July. But it did give municipalities more of a say in the speed limit within their borders.
Nobody's got 35 miles an hour through the middle part of town.
No. I mean, Louisa's at 25.
We're at 25 everywhere. Except right there.
Montpelier does.
Montpelier's at 35.
It's 35 through the main stretch in town.
It's 25 at Puritan Cleaners.
At Puritan Cleaners?
Yeah, on 54.
Oh, I'm talking about 33.
Montpelier, I'm sorry, you're in Montpelier.
They're,
They're very close.
you guys are the one to get together.
Yes, you're right, they are 35, and as I pointed out to my seeing eye driver, this is a known traffic
Speed trap.
speed trap. And she hit the brakes and said, next time, give me more warning. And it's been helpful, but yeah,
And that's something we could definitely address with the,
and that doesn't cost us money.
right. You can address that as a committee to the commission, to the council, to address to the county. So the way that it works, I believe, is the town has to petition the county has to okay it, and then we go to the VDOT. I think that's how the General Assembly just,
That's an apple I can reach. And we can
right,
start that next week, let me tell you.
absolutely. And I think you would please many, many, many people on the council making that recommendation.
So just to sort of recap our consensus on this. So it's we do want to suggest this as part of the improvement, but not necessarily in a monetary sort of way, more of a recommendation.
Yeah, I think the most important part is 2.4. And there should be, I know that there's someone who talks with VDOT, but I think it needs to be maybe a member of the planning commission, maybe a member of the town council to do this. Not since Tony Henshaw was on the planning commission did we have any really.
So
Work with VDOT.
I will have to get back to you on the exact dates, but you know that VDOT is going through their 10-year comprehensive plan stage right now. So they've just set out what their public meetings are going to be for each district. I want to say Culpeper is the 12th, but I don't remember what our district is. So I'll find out and I'll get it to Ed, to the chairman, to get out to the commission. I think that would be a great opportunity for the planning commission to join them, maybe send a representative and maybe make contact with someone that we can make friends with.
All right, so for 2.4 then, I think that's a really good point. So we should, I'm sorry, I did want to ask a clarification question. Are there any committees currently on council that address specifically streets and roads and traffic concerns with VDOT? Who is the representative for that?
So technically, no. So we have a streets committee and really what they do right now is let the town manager know if there's a pothole or there's concern on a street. The town manager is the voice. She's the executive officer. So she reaches out to VDOT. No member of council would reach out on behalf of the town.
Oh, yeah, no, let me clarify my question if you wouldn't mind. So there is a committee that does currently address concerns in the town about streets.
Oh, yes.
Not necessarily to reach out to VDOT.
Yes, yes.
That there's a process there, but correct me if I'm wrong, other commission members, but I think it would be a good idea to recommend to council that maybe the committee that is in charge of roads does hold regular meetings. I'd say at minimum, twice a year. Quarterly, I think would be best. That way we get a better.
So that committee meets the first Thursday of every month. It's either Thursday or Tuesday, I'll confirm. But the Water and Streets Committee meets the first Thursday. I think it's the first Thursday of every month, but I'll confirm that with you all. So right now, their priority obviously is the water system, but they do take into account if there's a street with a major pothole, we try to get them on the list for VDOT to come out and repair them if they're public streets. So that committee does meet once a month.
And that committee is open to the public as well.
Yep.
So I think that as the planning commission, we should recommend to council that they improve the marketing for certain committee meetings and
It is.
advertising.
It is publicized in all places required by state and federal law. And it's on our agenda every single month.
So I get that, but I'm gonna go ahead and argue against you there. Sometimes it's like winking at a girl in the dark, even when the lights are on, if nobody's paying attention. And I think that was part of the problem with this town council for the longest time and the town communication. This type of information was released at the bare minimum. And if we want more community engagement, it has to come from the top down.
It's a different engagement. The engagement they have now is, can we keep things running at an even par and maintain what we have? And what we're doing with not just VDOT, but also with Louisa is looking at a bigger picture, as opposed to there's a pothole that's ripping out the bottoms of cars.
Proactive solutions, not reactionary solutions.
Just so maybe the person to meet with is the town manager.
Well, and so I'm not certain that we're all talking about the same thing here. So if we're talking about street improvement, that we don't pay for that. It does not come out of our tax dollars, so it can't be part of our capital improvement plan. It is an overall issue that the entire county of Louisa has experienced and is in part why the town has built a bridge to the county to get us higher on the pecking order. So we apply to VDOT and say, hey, we have a pothole. We can go in and do a temporary remedy, fill it with gravel so that the cars don't fall in it, but we can't repair it. We have to petition VDOT and wait for them to send someone out. So Town of Mineral with 478 citizens is probably third to never on their pecking order. So if we build a relationship with VDOT on a closer level, we might get a little higher on the pecking order. But when you sit and listen to the board of supervisors at the county level say they can't get VDOT to come out and fix a road in the county, and then think that a small town within the county is going to have any higher clout than the board of supervisors, it's just not reasonable.
Could I didn't mean to butt in. Can I make a suggestion or a comment that I had passed along to a previous council and a previous mayor? And I think it might be well worth the consideration. That is that the county of Louisa has the resident engineer, who's a regional person, to come to their meetings once a month. They meet twice a month, but once a month, that resident engineer comes to their meeting so that they can ask them questions or hear reports and all. Town of Mineral has never been able to do that or has never asked to do that, and probably may not get a positive response that they would be able to do it. But I think that if you want to have a firsthand knowledge and want them to know the town, that the town should request VDOT, whether they have to go directly to VDOT or through the county, for them to have their resident engineer to attend at least once a year a town council meeting. And schedule it for whenever it's going to be, so that that person can talk to the town about the town and can hear the council bring up things, and maybe the public bring up things. But how much is that to ask the resident engineer to show up at least once a year in the town? Never been done to my knowledge, but that would be a way to have them know who you are, the town is, and us to know who that person is. So I think that ought to be pursued, ought to be requested in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you, Ed. I agree with that 100%. I was about to write that down before you started speaking. I think that's more to clarify what I was talking about earlier with the making sure that that information is available to the public and having an engineer, somebody that's there to actually answer these questions and address things with. Because it's one thing to have, a committee meeting once a month and people show up when they have a concern or they have something to talk about, which is great. We want to know what's going on in the town so we can get it repaired. But I think there's also that proactive element to be able to have someone as a subject matter expert in the meeting that can address some of the concerns citizens have right away. If there's a question about a certain state of something or a road repair, if there is a representative that's there, they can quell any concerns that the citizens have, or potentially bring up something that could be a major concern later and get it immediately on PDOT's radar because they've got a representative right there. So I think a yearly meeting would be a fantastic idea. So taking a look at the time, it's a little bit before 8 o'clock. We are almost through the transportation section. I suggest that since it is almost 8 o'clock, we finish this section and then we close this working session and plan our next one with the remaining time. Okay.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Awesome. Okay, so our next section is objective 3, encourage responsible development practices and enhance roadway aesthetics. All things that we've kind of been discussing all evening anyway. The first 3 sections, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 from the comprehensive plan are more direction. I think direction focused suggestions, advocate for restrictions of tractor trailer traffic, enforce the prohibition of parking tractor trailers in the historic district, ensure transportation needs are targeted and addressed during site development and support of local land use priorities. These are all things that are either fall under a different category that's already been in discussion with the historic items or are being addressed through the streets development as well. So I think those aren't necessarily monetary things to include in the capital improvements plan, just more business as usual.
Yeah.
And so the next section for 3.4, I do think is an important section. Improve the appearance of major gateways and roadways by mandating landscape buffers and exploring grant opportunities. This is something that specifically needs money or needs some sort of funding from the town. What do we think about this item?
This is another one that sounds like somebody from Charlottesville. Major gateways, we already have entrance to the town at every entrance, if I'm correct, Ed, or anybody who's done that. We have landscaping and a sign at every entrance to the town. It's more of a maintenance thing in terms of the beautification committee. It's not like we have a highway coming through it.
As you were saying, Jim, yes, there's 4 major entrances off of the primary roads into the town. There, you have a town sign at each one of them with a plot beneath it that can be planted and has been planted. It's kind of hard to keep them up because it's always been volunteers to do it. So to have volunteers, maybe some pursuit ought to be looked at or requested from groups that may function to do that. Maybe the schools, maybe other types of volunteer groups, who knows? But less and less availability of committed people to do it themselves personally. It is an important reflection on the town, though, I believe, to try to keep those monument, more or less, areas, looking attractive and inviting for the town.
Well, I think I definitely agree with that, Ed. And I think this one is more addressing the improvements to the appearance, not necessarily just the regular maintenance of the landscape buffers. but exploring other opportunities to try and, improve what's there. I definitely think that we should include that, what we currently have as at the entrances to the town, we should include that as part of our recommendation in the capital improvements plan, that there should be money set aside for that on the regular. But I think you're right too, seeing what we can do in the way of volunteers, say this, we know that this amount of money could potentially be used to help, maintain the landscape buffers around the town. But we potentially have volunteers or other groups that are willing to help take on that burden for us. And that money could be reallocated into other places.
I could see where you might do something like, ask for people to, I'm going to shut up because I don't have a good way of saying this.
Are you thinking sponsorships? Like,
I'm thinking you put out a prize and you say, we're looking for a new design for this end of town.
oh,
And we'll fund what you want to build. And we'll choose who gets to do it. I mean, so if you went to the high school and said to their turf and planting and horticulture group, we've got a prize for someone to come up with a design for, I'm thinking, that corner as you come in, that little corner that gets chewed up for people to skip the hard right at the end of the
right at the bend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that little spot would be a place that you could say, we're looking for a design for this spot to improve the way we look. Come up with a design. If we choose yours, you get to do it, and we'll pay it. Maybe there'll be, some little prize to go with it. That's what I think. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Yes, I really like that idea.
Oh, okay. But that's how I see us doing that to because the other is maintenance. We want to then beef it up somehow. Let's add something there. And then you could subsequently in coming years identify, oh, this sign is nice, but what would you do to make it pop? Would you add plantings that aren't in the box? What could you do?
So I've included that as part of the suggestion under there. And with 3.4, I think this one is a little bit more aspirational, since it's not something that's necessary if we're looking at improving what's there or creating new things that are there. We have other things that we're working on, or we know that the council has priority for. Maybe having that as that long-term type of kind of goal. That gives us time to figure out a process for getting those recommendations and getting the competition together, and actually getting students engaged at the high school, which would be fantastic.
That would be something to come talk to us at some point, would be the horticulture.
Any other thoughts on that one, Ed? For 3.4?
That's what I've got.
You asked, were you asking me? Did I hear you?
Oh, for 3.4, improve the appearance of the major gateways. Did you have any other follow-up after Jim's suggestion?
I would also include that spot there at Luck Field, which has the love sign, and it's right across from the farmers market in Whitlock Family Park. That is a very significant plot, and there's a lot of work to do to keep that up and everything. And people come there to take pictures there of themselves as they're traveling around Virginia. More pictures taken there than anywhere else, I suspect. So do keep that one in mind as a major area for beautification and maintenance, sponsorship maybe.
No, I like that.
So that's not a gateway, but it's certainly a significant focal point for the traveling public and the townspeople.
Right? Well, and I would think it is a gateway myself. It's one of the main entrances into town. Luck Field is one of the places that everybody sees when they're coming in for the ball field. I would include that myself and as a gateway.
Yep.
So the next one is 3.5. This one is for the exploring the opportunity of establishing Mineral as an urban development area alongside Louisa County with VDOT to facilitate access to grant and plan assistance. I mean, I think that's a recommendation we should have. Yeah, but it's aspirational because it's not necessarily money.
Sounds good to me.
So, all right, just 3 more to go. Objective 4 is awareness of transportation options and address needs for diverse transportation users. So these 3 are more specific to our citizens and specific citizen populations. 4.1 is to increase the awareness and continue to support the rideshare and travel demand management TDM services. I don't know specifics about rideshare and travel demand management. Does anybody else know how those programs work or how we support them?
I don't know that they are available here. The one transportation program I know about is Jaunt. But this appears to be like the possibility that at one point of the commuter rail being established that would get you to DC from this area. That's in this area, but I'm thinking this is more along the line of rideshare and I don't know that this is an interesting goal, but I don't know that there's anything.
Yeah, I think that was put in there by TJPDC. They have that, in the metropolitan areas and all around the district, and they, know how, I believe, to go out and try to elicit funding for applicable services. So, if the town grows, if that PUD develops, if more apartments or other things get established in town, I'm sure, and certainly if that rail line were to come to be through town again as part of what the state develops, then those things could be a caveat for more transportation and more visitation.
I think 4.2 is more important.
I agree. And so what I'll do is I'll take this as a takeaway for myself. I'll do some more research into rideshare and the travel demand management services and see if we actually work with them right now, because we could just eliminate that from the list. But for 4.2, ensure the diverse needs of a changing population are met, elderly, disabled, and LEP persons lacking access to private vehicles. I think this goes right back to our sidewalks as well as other access.
And I will say, having walked here from my house, it's not an easy walk, even if there were sidewalks, because we are in the Piedmont, and I don't want to make that walk anymore until I feel better. But I think we could begin the process of who needs help getting somewhere, and then we can maybe facilitate some action by community individuals to assist.
Awesome. I like that idea. Any thoughts on that one, Ed?
Yeah, as a senior citizen, I think that's a great idea.
And you know what? Actually, that's a fantastic thought too. I think that's what we should do, is we should reach out to our population of a certain age and, get their input, maybe invite them, if we're going to do anything, invite them to some kind of a, open house workshopping session specifically about, access and accessibility throughout the town and maybe the surrounding areas, because while we do have, some amenities here, it isn't inclusive of everything, including, medical services. So
Yeah,
the closest being Louisa.
my good friend was, she was really vision impaired, could make a phone call and get a ride somewhere. And maybe that's where we act as a clearinghouse.
Was that with Jones?
No, it wasn't with John. She was over in the Allen area. And it was a service akin to Uber, but it was different funding because she was a senior and she couldn't see driving.
Oh, you know what, that reminds me, actually, from my time in social services, I remember there are certain programs and there's certain funding that's available for people on Medicaid and receiving other forms of assistance that actually provides kind of a stipend or a credit. And I think Lyft is one of the programs that does it.
Lyft.
It was Lyft, okay.
But to your comment earlier, John is probably the major one that is available in Louisa, because the county budgets every year for participation in that regional availability. And it does stop by, pick people up. I don't know how it works, but John does pick up people and take them from point A to point B for medical needs or other activities, I guess, as far as from here to Charlottesville, I think.
So I've just put down a note that, especially knowing that the county works with John directly, I think we should reach out to them or at least find more information about what the county currently does with John. And then maybe we can use that as a part of the recommendations to council to say, hey, maybe part of your outreach with the county or with the town of Louisa is, figuring out what you're currently funding. Is there any way that we can help support our citizens and work on it, have kind of a communal fund or, figure out some sort of a process from there.
Yes, sir.
And then the very last one, which is great because we've kind of talked about it already, is improve access to transit and rail for all users.
What, see, there is a Charlottesville list. I think becoming a clearinghouse for those people who have transportation needs. Because, walking to Miller's, and there are people that walk to Miller's from down below where I live. So somewhere to make that easier for people who can't get out.
Well, I do just reiterate what was brought up earlier. The railroad station in the town of Mineral, I've never been inside of it, but I believe that it is in far better condition than many of the other ones along the track, including Louisa's. And I mean, because it's still used by them for maintenance purposes around outside as well as inside. So I do think that that the town should pass along to the state and pursue, what their interest is and what they would be willing to do, and for the town to be notified if and when there was any consideration of disposing of that property. I would hate as one citizen of the town to wake up one day and find that the state gave it away to someone else, or that it was sold at some reasonable price to some other party, knowing that the town has been interested in it for a long, long time.
Yeah, that makes total sense, Ed. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking for, because I know you brought that up earlier too with one of the other notes. I just want to make sure that I cross-reference that. Oh, 1.5 in transportation. Awesome.
So it's my understanding that even though the state has purchased the line, the actual tracks, they've only purchased the stations that they intend to turn into operable stations. So it's my understanding, and I can get a contact person for y'all to reach out to with CSX Buckingham Branch. My understanding is they still own it and they are not willing to relinquish it. Now, I haven't asked in 2 years, but I did ask every month for 2 years prior to that. So I don't believe the state has purchased the station here in Mineral because we were passed over. We don't have parking. That's why they went with Louisa.
So it would still be a private owner that we're not sure of.
It would still be Buckingham Branch, the train, yeah, Buckingham Branch CSX. Buckingham Branch uses it currently for maintenance supplies and storage. I have been in it, and Ed's right, it is in much better condition than the one in the town of Louisa. I think the state made a big mistake, and I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, and picking up on that point, Ron, if there's a problem that the train station doesn't have adequate parking around it, of course, we know that it's a doctor and dentist office, right across the lot, but then the lot that the town now owns butts right up to it. So who specifically has the availability to address the parking that's necessary? The town of Mineral does. So what other entity would have very much interest in it and be able to, and buy it, use it, get it, and do anything with it but Mineral?
Right.
Well, the other big property in the area that could be parking is the fire department's big field, which they don't use. Used to be the fair site.
When I wish that we had, as a town, been presented that option. The state didn't present it to us. They went through and did assessments, and it's already decided.
Yeah.
Town of Louisa is opening their train station, and they're taking that municipal lot, and they'll charge for parking. Sadly, we were never approached. They just skip right on by us.
Right. But if I understood you, Ron, you're saying that CSX still owns that. And
Right.
if in fact CSX still owns it, what good does it do them?
Right.
If nobody else could have parking available to use it, what other likely customer of interest could there be but us as a town?
Right.
So maybe
Yes.
it is CSX that we have to contact again. And since they've given or sold the rails and all to the state of Virginia, and since they're not likely to find any other cash offers to buy it from anyone else,
Right.
maybe now we're in a better position than we ever were.
Right. Circumstances have changed.
Yep. So anyway, I know that Chris Guerrero, when he was living here, researched that extensively, and I only pass it along because I never looked at it and I've never dealt directly in it, but he seemed to think, and he told me often that the town ought to be looking at that because it went to the state. So apparently he was partly right, but there's more to it than that
Yeah.
CSX still retains some things. And it would pay us, I'm sure, to find out and try to get on top of it so that we could at least be in the ball game for what becomes of that historic building.
Absolutely.
Thanks. You need a motion to adjourn?
We need a motion to adjourn.
Do we need a motion? No, not for this one. Yeah, no, so meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene after we.
Since this is a committee of the planning commission,
Yeah.
do you schedule that at the planning commission level?
No, so any committee can set any meetings that they want. Now, bear in mind, if you find that there's going to be more than 2 commission members in attendance, just let the staff know so they can advertise it for you. So if you all decide you want to meet next Thursday, just let the staff know so they can get it posted.
Yeah, how long is it?
3 days.
Huh?
3 days. It has to be advertised for 3 days.
Doesn't have to go to the newspaper.
No. We just have to put it on our social media, on the sign out front and on the door.
So,
Um,
so in that case, what I'll do is we will adjourn the meeting. I will take, as the chair of the committee, the duty to reach out to the other planning commission members and suggest a couple of dates and see who's available. After there's a consensus, I'll get something scheduled and I'll reach out to the town manager and make sure that's actually advertised correctly.
I think that if you can say, we're done at this, keep it short, not in terminal, so that some of us can go home and go to sleep. I'd be willing to come to any of the Thursday meetings.
Fantastic. And unfortunately for me, the remaining part of the Thursdays for the month are a little off, so I have to look at my schedule and see what I have available, but I will reach out and let everybody know and give everyone the opportunity to attend as well.
Brian, did you say that you sent me a copy of the stuff that y'all were working from?
Not yet. I don't have internet access easily here, so when I get back to the house, I'll send it to you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Good work.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.